Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a great day today at Big Data London. It's awesome to be on stage here today. It's actually 26 years ago that I was in London before. I did my master's here. And it's so awesome to be back here 26 years later, the exact same month, September. Super excited to be here to talk about this fascinating topic about sort of aligning data strategy with digital transformation, digital innovation, the different terms that sort of are being used to sort of talk about innovating in enterprises. And data strategy has a critical role to play in making this really great. And I've been in Microsoft now for 23 years. 10 of my most recent years have been in leading data initiatives within Microsoft, both in product teams as well as internally within IT and our digital organization. And man, has it been a journey of learnings, incredible learnings. I'm currently responsible for our analytics and our data governance business. But the journey just prior to my current role was one where I led the internal data transformation as a part of our broader digital transformation project. So this was a journey within Microsoft to internally transform our products, our operations, our customer systems, our employee systems. And a critical component of that journey was the data strategy and figuring it out. So a lot of what I'm going to share with you today are sort of like learnings from traversing that journey. And I'm offering these more as considerations for you to sort of take, and hopefully you'll find them useful as you navigate your own respective sort of journeys in your organizations. So this is a great quote that I actually got from one of my industry peers, Wendy Turner-Williams, who's the CDO of Tableau. And she uses this term of data as the oxygen for digital innovation or digital transformation. It's a super apt term. But if you unpack it a little bit and think about it, just think about the evolution that we've navigated, right? Like I would say about 10, 15 years ago, software, code, generated data. And then we kind of evolved to a state where the software that you use presents data or insights from data to help you sort of look at it and make some business decisions. Versus today, we are at a phase where the insights and the intelligence from data is literally steering the code paths of your software and your services that create the customer experiences that you want to deliver, that help your employees be productive, and that optimize your operations. It is a fundamental paradigm and shift and a pivot where the importance of data and its interlock with software and technology is becoming so pronounced, almost to the point where it's seamless and not even recognizable at times. So really getting that data strategy and your tech strategy and your business strategy aligned is going to be super critical. But guess what? This is one of the hardest things to do. Like aligning an organization on a data strategy, it is not an easy undertaking. And I experienced this and lived through this over the last 4 years, like doing it within Microsoft, navigating the global enterprise of Microsoft to think about data in a common way. And boy, was that a journey of learning. I went in thinking it's going to be a fantastic sort of like technical sort of like journey with lots of new learnings and all the good stuff, having been in product teams before. And what I realized was that technology is a component of a data strategy. It's a critical enabler, but it's not the solution. Because a data strategy very fundamentally is more of a people and a culture change management conundrum that you really got to think deeply about and figure out. And this has been like, I would say, a super eye-opening learning. And a lot of the sharings that I'm going to do with you today as considerations for you to take away are sort of like oriented around this. And fundamentally, if you think about it, this is all about influencing the minds and getting people to unlock and steer away from their prior ways of thinking about data to thinking about how they could be looking to apply it in new and innovative ways. Whether it's your business decision maker, whether it's the technology decision makers or practitioners, across the board, you're going to meet people at different levels of sort of like understanding and passion for data. And getting them to all see it the same way and support it and navigate towards it is super complex and a hard problem to navigate. And as I shared earlier, like I had the opportunity to do this within Microsoft over the last 4 to 5 years. And we went from a place of having absolutely no data strategy. A lot of people find this surprising. They think that, hey, you're Microsoft, you should probably have this button down. Trust me, we did not. Like, we operated in a world where it was all data silos, like no standard, consistent way to do data management and data governance. Like every team figuring out how to build their own data infrastructures and data applications, you name it, that's the state where we started, right? And I was handed over this awesome sort of opportunity to say, great, come figure this out and get us all to a common data strategy. And I went in there all super excited about, awesome, this is going to be about taking a bunch of on-prem stuff, moving it to the cloud, learn this new tech, and having been a techie before, it was like I was jazzed about that. But once I got in there, boy, that was my journey, right? It is like, and this is a journey that actually I would say is kind of what many chief data officers go through in their own respective organizations. I've kind of spoken about this with many of my peers, industry peers, and colleagues, and it's no different. And really what you got to come to terms with is the fact that you're going to have lots of highs and lows as you navigate this. And it's all about how you shift from feeling really mind blown when you hit those lows to just recognizing and appreciating that this is a part of the process, and then to iteratively keep learning from those sort of slips and slopes to figure out how you keep going up, right? And I would say that though we've been on this journey for 4 years, getting from a place of no strategy to now finally having a strategy where teams are starting to adapt and adopt sort of like common practices, we still are not all the way there. Like we're probably, I would say, 70, 80% of the way there, and there's still a lot to learn and keep iterating. But guess what? That's what this is. It's a journey of continuous learning. And as a data practitioner and data leader, for you, it's really about how do you get beyond sort of those slumps and dips and treat them as learnings and apply them to continue to sort of like move forward. So with that as context, let's go through some of the key sort of top of mind learnings that I would like to share today, right? The first one is this one. This is super, super important. It really starts with the leadership. And data is one of those topics. I mean, I don't know how to put it, right? I mean, if I really have to take a step back and describe it in layman terms, I've never seen a topic as contentious as data. It is crazy contentious. I mean, it brings out the primal instincts in people. Like your most seasoned executives and leaders will start kind of get animated about data the moment you bring this up. Primal instincts, different mechanisms, every cell, every fiber in the body lights up, you know, when you start talking about data ownership and data strategy. Why is that, right? It's great to see that positive sort of like energy that people have about wanting to own their data and manage their data. But then there's a higher order bit, which is about setting an organizational vision for data, a strategy for data, and getting people aligned around it. And it all starts with the functional leaders. Very often, the functional leaders end up IQ canceling each other, as opposed to recognizing and amplifying the greater opportunity. And as a data leader, if you're stepping into a context like that, that's job number one for you, right? If you're a person or a candidate who's considering a CDO role in an organization, try to have this conversation up front. I had it later, learned a ton from doing it. Wouldn't take a day back from that learning, but the first advice I give people who consider CDO roles is have this dialogue at the start. If you're already in it, have the dialogue early. If you're like me, who traversed through several years to get a lot of these learnings, that's fine too, right? Hopefully some of the takeaways you go from today will help you sort of navigate this journey. But this notion of really understanding how the functions have to complement and come together around a data strategy is super critical. And I'll break it down to you into 3 core considerations. Like any data strategy has 3 components. That's technology. Everybody gets that. Everyone is excited about it, right? But there's another one that's super important, data culture and literacy. And then there's a third, which ties it all together, change management, right? And you're going to need leaders who can take the cudgel on each of these pillars and bring them all together. If you're a data leader who's going in enamored with the tech, chances are you might encounter a CIO or a CTO in the organization who wants that same accountability. And as a data leader, you got to be flexible enough to recognize those dynamics and sort of have the needed conversations to align on how you're going to complement each other, right? And there are times when you might have to say, you know what, that's great, you can have the tech, but probably you don't get the data culture or the literacy. Let me take that, let's partner up, and figure out how do we make this work. And then you get to build credibility, and then you get to build resonance, and then bring people along the journey, right? So it is one of those things where you really have to be dynamic. You might go in thinking it's something, and then you learn it's something different, but you've got to be able to adapt and bring things together. But at the end of the day, it's all about getting ahead of IQ cancellations, stopping the IQ cancellations, and pivoting the gear into the more collaborative approach to realize the greater opportunities. And as a data officer or a data leader, you also have the accountability to call out on your senior leadership and get them to action when this is not happening. Because if you don't light up that conversation and get them to have that discussion and dialogue, it's never going to happen, right? So really, really think hard about this. The next one, a data strategy is not political science. It is a team sport. The moment you start a data strategy conversation talking about, do we centralize or do we decentralize this? Do we federate or do we centralize or decentralize? Every one of those terms are just riddled with political sort of like innuendos. It's like, if that conversation even starts going down that path, stop it and pivot out of it, right? Because that's a totally unproductive dialogue. Centralization, decentralization, and federation. This truly is a team sport, right? It is about recognizing what are the strengths, what are the capabilities that you need to truly, truly sort of like make data strategy successful. And then it's about recognizing who in an organization has that strength and has that capability to bring it to life for you. And then it's about stringing those strengths and capabilities to make it work, right? In many ways, if you think about it, like the role of a data officer or a data office is to drive that coordination, right? You are a coach. You're a coach of a team sport. That's what you are, right? There are times when you're going to have to be the player. There are times when you have to sit on the sideline and coach someone to get what you need to get done, right? And I'll give you an example. One of the data products that we had to build about a couple of years ago, it was a customer 360 data product. I'm sure you all can connect with that, right? And there was this huge debate between the data office and IT, my team, and the customer experience team, a semi-business techno function that wanted to build a product. And we got all sort of like scrambled in this notion of like, hey, who should build it, who should own it? There are two things you need to build a customer 360 product. You need to have sort of like the domain expertise to do that. You need to understand your customer data. You got to understand it across an enterprise to be able to stitch it and apply it. But more importantly, you also got to have the skills to build a data product, right? And ideally, it's a data product you build once. You don't want to have multiple sort of versions and dialects of your customer 360 data product flying around in your company. That could result in all sorts of challenges and problems for you down the line. So ultimately, the conversation came down to this. Like, the customer experience leader really felt that his team had to build it. Why? Oh, if IT builds it, it's centralized. OK. Let's say you build it. How many copies of this are we going to have? Oh, one. Awesome. So how does you building one copy for the company make it any less sort of like centralized than a data office and an IT organization building it once for the same company, right? So now the conversation shifts to a different gear, which is, it's not really about centralization or decentralization. It's about who has the right chops, skills, and experience, and domain know-how to do that. Now you're getting to a real conversation. The customer experience leader clearly had the deeper expertise of customer data, the understanding of customer data, and had a team of data engineers and data scientists and analysts who could totally do it for the company. So that was really a case where we had to adapt and shift out of saying, hey, we are IT, we are the data office, we are the one who should be building all of the data products, to recognizing that in this case, the best thing we can do is step aside, enable the customer experience team to build it, give them the infrastructure that they needed to build it and put it on so that everybody can use it and benefit from it, and empower them to go do that, right? So that's a real example of where we really sort of shifted gears from starting out as a political science discussion and making it more of a team sport. Invest in data fundamentals. I cannot enough stress the importance of this. People get enamored by the tech. They go straight into trying to figure out how to build the coolest tech. But you cannot enough sort of like underestimate the importance of data culture and data literacy. And this is not even like getting super sort of smart and deep in all of the technical aspects of data tech. It's really about some of the bare-bone fundamentals. Like, let me give you an example of data culture. For us, the #1 cultural shift that we had to make to get to where we got was getting our people to understand and internalize that data is an organizational asset. That it is not an individual asset. It is not a team's single asset. It's an organizational asset. People get so animated about wanting to own their data, put their sort of ring fences around it, like not open it up to anybody else. If someone wants to build something with the data, it has to go through the team that produces the data. And we really had to navigate people out of that mindset to recognizing that it's great that you have the passion for the data. Awesomeness. Like, you got to be accountable for your data. You have to own your data governance for your data. But you also have to enable responsible democratization of your data when there are broader organizational scenarios and use cases that the data can serve and which those scenarios depend upon. That is super critical to recognize. So ensuring that people understand that, appreciate that, and then enabling that culture of responsible democratization was one of our top cultural sort of shifts. In terms of data literacy, Beyond the basics of how do you become data-driven, how do you truly apply metrics to make business decisions, how do you understand the fundamentals of ML/AI, there's a lot of stuff that goes into this. But if I have to pick one that was really important for us, it was about addressing the primal fear, the primal concern that a lot of our business employees and employees in operations functions were starting to fear when they heard the word ML/AI infusion into their worlds. There was just fundamentally a primal instinct around like, oh my God, what are these guys talking about? More automation, more intelligence, our roles are going to go away, we're not going to have a job, stuff like that. Helping people understand and educating them on how the machine and the human are actually going to help each other scale more than what they could have done probably on their own. It's about how ML/AI or intelligence can help a human elevate to performing things that they should really be doing and adding more greater value in, as well as it's about how the intel and the knowledge of the human can continue to feed the models that you build to optimize them, to train them, and bring more and more of that context into the automation. That is a super critical sort of like know-how to educate folks on before you try to go bombard people and say like, thou shall adopt automation, thou shall adopt ML/AI. It's like, you really want to get the full buy-in? Show them how it's going to make their life better and help them scale up and do more, right? So lots and lots of opportunities there. This is a very favorite topic of mine, which is modern data architectures. And we spent tons of time, like months, getting into academic debates about like, which is better? Should we do a data mesh? Should we do like a data fabric? Should we do a data hub? Should we do a data lakehouse? Should we go data virtualization or no data virtualization? At the end of the day, the reality is that modern architectures are not mutually exclusive. They are collectively transformative. There is goodness in every one of these architecture patterns, which if you pay careful attention to them, you'll be able to distill the best out of each of the patterns and apply them for your unique context. So what do we have today? So today we have an architecture where we have embraced the notion of federated or sort of like this data product development that is empowered in the hands of the teams who are best qualified to build those data products for us. So truly sort of like democratizing data product development to the edges and applying the data mesh concepts to help do that. We also embraced the data fabric in the context of recognizing the importance of metadata and applying metadata to scale our data management in ways that we've never done in the past. We've also adopted the data hub and concepts from the data hub around what are those capabilities that should be common and built once and run for the entire company versus being built by 10 different teams in different places, right? So our architecture is really a mix of the best of every one of these architecture patterns that's going to meet the needs of where we need to go as an organization. And that is something that's really important to understand. Finally, you're never going to figure this all out either at start, in the middle, or at the end. A data transformation journey is always a series of iterative sort of like learnings. And when you get started, chances are you're not going to have the entire organization on your camp. When my team started our data transformation journey, the starting point was literally 20, 60, 20, right? 20% all in, 60% on the fence. I might jump, I might not jump. 20% vehemently against anything to do with the data strategy because they thought it's centralization and they thought it's going to disempower them. If I and my team had sat and waited to try and bring the 60 and the other 20 along, we would have never gotten started. We started with the 20. The 20 that were the allies that were bought into the strategy. We went out there. We built the first set of assets. We demonstrated the value. We created a data estate by doing that that started attracting portions of the 60. And then that started iterating, growing to a point today where I would say we roughly have about 85% of the organization aligned on the same sort of like direction. The reason I say 85 is because you still have 15 who are not there yet, right? And guess what? That's the iterative journey that we have to get along with. But the interesting part of it is that 85, or at least it isn't entirely the folks who were totally no-sayers at the start. In fact, we managed to get some of the naysayers into the camp. And it's the folks who are on the fence who are still a little slow in sort of coming along, but who we believe we will bring along over time. But the key thing to keep in mind here are two things. Progression over perfection. And you do not have to be a completist to have impact, right? Like letting go of terms like completeness and perfection and focusing on progression and iterative learning will take you far on this journey. So here is where we are today, right? Where we truly have what we call a self-serve responsible core or a foundation. And we've got teams across the enterprise, business teams, operations teams, engineering teams, all building incredible sort of like data products and data experiences on that common foundation, right? And there's a lot that goes into this. There's an entire, this is a talk which we have to start unpacking. It'll probably take us a full day to go do that. And I'll be super happy to address questions and go deeper into this, like at the Microsoft booth, or anyone who wants to come up and talk, please come and reach out to me. But we can certainly talk a lot about this. But the key takeaway here is very simple. It's the fact that we went from one IT team or a few engineering teams building data products and solutions to a stage today where we have teams across the company building data products and solutions. We've got business teams who have data analysts, data engineers, and data scientists building data solutions. We've gotten really methodical, thoughtful about who should be building common infrastructure. We do not stop or prevent anyone from an organization to contribute to a common infrastructure if they have the passion to do that, right? So it's about these subtle shifts, which are often very pronounced in terms of the outcomes that they can generate for you, that are really critical to understand. So I'd like to end with two considerations for you. One for those of you who are running data officers and CDOs, and one for those of you who we can broadly categorize as data citizens, or the folks who are actually applying data for their business reasons. Let me start first with the data officer. If you're running a data office, if you're working in a data office, or if you're a data officer, consider focusing more on being a champion of enablement. The word COE, Center of Excellence, strongly recommend you lose that from your jargon. The moment you say Center of Excellence, you get folks going on the defensive. Oh, now you're talking about building everything. You're talking about owning it. You're talking about being the only person who can do this. Lose it. Make a mindset shift and think more about becoming a champion of enablement. Focus on responsibly democratizing data so that teams and individuals in your organization who need to be able to use that data are empowered to do it. And when you are given the accountability and the buy-in to go build something that's common for the company, encourage and promote an inner source culture. Inner source culture being adopting some of the open source practices and helping people in your organization who have a passion for that to contribute to it. That's a great thing, because it can also lead to great talent recognition and talent movements without all of the political sort of challenges and battles you'll have to fight otherwise, right? So think about these as considerations if you're in the data office. If you're a data citizen or a team that's applying data for your business purposes, try to really focus on your differentiation. Your differentiation is in figuring out how can you apply data in the best way for your business domain and make that kick-ass, right? So differentiating in responsible domain innovation, and the word responsible is super critical. It's very easy to just say, I need to build that thing. I'm going to do whatever it takes to build it. I don't care if I have to copy the data. I don't care if I don't have lineage once I copy the data. Like, think twice, because every decision that you make impacts your broader organization. Work with your data office to get the access to the information and the data you need. Own your data product, but focus on innovation, right? The excuse to go build your own infrastructure shouldn't just be because you're not in a team that's building infrastructure. If your data officer has empowered you to contribute to the infrastructure and you have a passion to do that, do it. But also recognize that a lot of the value creation that's going to come out of data is going to come out of this, right? At the end of the day, the infrastructure, the investments, everything that you're doing from a pure tech perspective is about enabling value creation from data. And the data citizens are like in the driver's seat of doing that. Embrace that. Get excited by that. Don't sit and sort of like worry about, oh my God, I don't get to build the cool big data infrastructure. I don't get to build the cool MLOps platform. Trust me, you want to do that, you can do that too. But this is where the future lies, in our ability to extract value from data, and a super critical opportunity for data citizens, right? So those are the two considerations that I'll leave you with. And thank you very much for taking the time to sort of like hear me out. And I'll be available to talk more, answer questions, and thank you.